The time of reckoning is upon us. Steam hath brought forth an apocalyptic event, and Blade and Soul Neo may never recover. But what's going on? We're going to get into that right now. Basically, with the release of Steam, there was a huge bunch of fraudulent chargebacks through Steam, as well as bots that entered the game, and it caused all these real money trading sites, also known as RMT, to dramatically lower their prices of gems, and quite a few bad actors started heavily purchasing in them. Now, overnight, seemingly at about Saturday night here in NA, the entire market got wiped. Everything in the market was bought out by all these people who were buying divine gems for super cheap, and then suddenly prices inflated. People saw that all this stuff was being bought for extremely high prices, and people wanted to get in on the train. People started selling their gear, started selling their books, and everything in the market highly inflated to anywhere between 2 and 5 times their normal prices. This paired with the standard DDoS attacks happening, NCSoft's already having an issue to deal with, and you had a recipe for disaster, especially since their entire office seems to be off during the weekends. In reaction to this mass inflation in the market and mass onset of RMT, 2 things happened. 1, the RMT got worse. There were a lot of people who used RMT to get ahead in the game, who then doubled down and started buying even more because suddenly they could buy at a super reduced cost and get a lot more on the market, even at those higher gem costs on the market. 2, people who legitimately bought before were then incentivized to go to RMT because they saw not only were all these people RMTing over the weekend not getting punished, but in order to try and keep up with the current economy in any way, they would be forced to RMT in order to maintain their top spots as whales. Quite a few players who invest money into this game, either through RMT or legitimate causes, who then switch to RMT, are now starting to hoard literal millions of gems because they're worth pennies on the dollars on these sites. I want to very quickly take an aside and say this is not okay. Do not ever use RMT. It is highly against TOS, and it is very bad for the health of the game in the long run. It might get you ahead briefly, but if the game is dead, then I guess the goal is to kill the game. The other thing, what this did was it caused a lot of the free-to-play players to now get priced out of the market, especially if they were not able to or willing to invest all their gear and things that they did have to be sold off for these highly inflated prices. All of a sudden, a book that normally costs you 30k or a book that costs you normally 2k is suddenly going for 90k, 10k, that kind of stuff. And everything else is double or triple the price as well. You can start trying to interact with the market by getting new items and selling them on the market. New blue books are going to be worth more, new purple books on market are going to be worth more, but every investment that you had before this weekend seems to be basically worth nothing. And this especially feels bad for free-to-play players who have such a limited income to begin with that a lot of their investment comes from their time, and suddenly their time was worthless, so why play the game to begin with? Now, before I go over possible solutions to this system, I do want to talk about other systems that we've seen through other games that deal with these situations in different ways. I think it's very important to be able to look at these cases and judge how much you can apply to this and see maybe what you can glean from that. The first thing I want to look at was RuneScape and their Grand Exchange. This was brought up by a viewer on Twitch chat the other night, and basically the idea is that in order to avoid these kinds of situations in the future, you want to have something like that where, for those who don't know, RuneScape and their Grand Exchange is heavily moderated by the game company itself. It is akin to high government intervention in a market, so you set floors and ceilings for the prices that certain goods can be sold at, or that all goods can be sold at. This does make it so that the market is very resistant to these high inflations, but it also makes it so that a lot of items end up not having any value in the market because the prices that you can sell them for in market have a much higher floor than people are actually willing to sell, and thus things just end up being completely worthless. Now, that being said, having a super low price on the free market might feel like something worthless to a player anyways, but especially if you're selling in bulk or doing something like that, you kind of have to judge that for yourself. There are other pluses and minuses that go along with a system like this. I am not super well versed in it to be able to speak on it, but that is something for you to decide or for others to look into if you want. The other system that I wanted to take a look at was Warframe's system. This is something that's much more akin to Blade and Souls, but not entirely applicable to what they can do. Warframe also has a free market, but the way that Warframe works is that they individually tag all their premium currency being platinum. So in Warframe, every single time platinum is generated, every single platinum is tagged with a marker to say who or what account originated that platinum with their purchase. So then as that platinum circulates the market, it is still always tied to that original buyer. And then if a buyer is ever found to be fraudulent, they are able to remove all the gems with those tags from that buyer. What this results in is, let's say you trade with a bot and you bought something for, however many 100 platinum or 100 gems is our equivalent, right? A small purchase. And then all of a sudden, or you sold something and they bought it for you for a small amount. And all of a sudden, that account was found to be fraudulent. It's deleted along with any of the gems it's ever created, any of the platinum it's ever created. You as the seller or purchaser would find that your account would suddenly have less platinum, less currency than before. This feels bad because, of course, especially in the Blade and Soul system, how are you supposed to know who you're trading with? Well, Warframe's also dealt with that in a way where what they do is they give you access to the full profile of the person that is selling on the market that you are buying from. And what this has done is it's caused a lot of incentive for player policing of the market as well. Players don't want their investments or their items to be immediately gone. So in order to avoid that, because they know that that'll happen if an account is flagged as fraudulent and taken down, they will constantly look at the profiles of the people that they are buying from to judge whether or not they're legitimate sellers. And by doing that, you disincentivize people through RMT, but also give players a reason to believe like, hey, if you are doing this and you do accidentally trade with the RMT, it's your fault for not actually looking at the source to begin with before we were able to act on it ourselves and find it. Now, whether or not you agree with the fact that this needs to be a player responsibility or a company responsibility or shared, that's up to you to decide. This is just kind of what happens in Warframe, and I thought it was neatly applicable to this situation here. Now, of course, I don't trust NCSoft to actually have that in their code where they track every single divine gem in their source, but maybe they do. Who knows? Unfortunately, my faith in that is just a little lacking. But it is something that they could do in the future to try and prevent this stuff. Both RuneScape and Warframe have their pluses and minuses with how they deal with their economy, and neither are perfectly applicable to Blade and Soul since they are all different games in their own right. But these are some things that you can look at and maybe try to learn from in the future. I particularly like the idea of being able to track the source of the divine gems from Warframe, so maybe we can see something like that implemented, and maybe Blade and Soul Neil can be upfront about that kind of stuff so that people know, and we can start looking and moderating the stuff ourselves a little bit as well. So with all of this being said, what's the actual solution to this? How do we get out of this? What are people expecting? Well, there's a whole lot of different answers to this, and unfortunately none of them is good. Unfortunately, we're stuck in a lose-lose situation. Someone's going to leave the game, someone's going to get hurt, people will be mad no matter what. There's no way for NCSoft to adequately deal with this where they make all good parties they want to keep happy, but what they can do is try to maintain the fire down to as minimal size as possible. The first thing that I want to applaud NCSoft for is the fact that they're being very vocal on their public channels, their Discord, for example, about the fact that they're looking into this consistently, and that needs to continue, especially going forward. A lot of this issue was caused by a hyperinflation of panic amongst players that if they didn't participate in the system now, seeing that people weren't getting punished, then suddenly they could never participate in the system because they were going to fall behind. It's very important to be public about the fact that you're looking into this, and it's very important to make sure that players have trust that you as the company are going to maintain the value of their investment, whether that be their money or their time, and that people cheating on those aspects or those avenues through third-party sites, RMTs, aren't going to be able to actually affect your play as a free-to-play or a casual, proper, legitimate spending player. So the first thing that I've seen a lot of people talking about is bans. Bans is a huge topic here, and you have to be very careful with how you go about it. From a company's perspective, you want to make sure that you are keeping all the players who are paying you legitimate money while getting rid of the players who aren't. And you want to make sure that you're also maintaining as much of the free player base as possible because unfortunately Blade and Soul Neil does not have a very high population right now to begin with. You have to make sure that you're addressing each group individually in a way that's proper to them. So group 1, people who always RMT'd and only RMT'd. Ban them right away. There should be adequate ways to make sure that you can track who bought through legitimate avenues and who didn't. The divine gems in the store are purchasable or tradable with Ncoin. it should be seen that if an account bought Ncoin and then got a mass amount of Divine Gems at the loss of Ncoin, they're legitimate. Whereas if an account got a huge amount of Divine Gems really quickly without ever buying Ncoin to begin with, that's fraud. They need to be banned. There's no room for players who want to spend their time on this game but take actions that actively hurt it by participating in illegal economic activities that in the end eventually hurt the market and hurt the game. Group number 2. This is probably the most important group for NCSoft, and it is the group of players who spend money legitimately on this game. Unfortunately, a lot of players who spent money legitimately have moved to RMT over the course of this weekend in order to try and keep up, and this is going to be the most nuanced situation of all. I don't have the perfect answers for how to deal with this, but I don't think banning is necessarily the right way to deal with it. I don't think you ban these players. It's shown that they paid money to try to support the company in the past, but they do need to lose their investment for the RMT, which is why I believe a rollback is probably something that would work really well here. Without banning these players, they need to lose their investment and then have some kind of way to recoup their losses through legitimate means, or at least minimize the losses that they incurred to a fair extent. These are the people that are paying the money and keeping the game servers up for everybody else, all the free-to-play players, so I do believe that you need to try to maintain them as much as possible. Group number 3 are all the free-to-play players. Now, free-to-play players you want to maintain as much as possible, but I'm sure there will be many who just quit over whatever solution there is to this just because it's not ever going to be a perfect solution. They're going to feel hurt and they are going to leave, and that's fair. If that's you, then I'm sorry that's what had to happen. As a free-to-play player myself, I'm fine with the idea of simply going back to block 1 and then kind of building up again from there. I did make some gains over the weekend by selling, like, say, gold on the market, but I am fine with losing that. I would much rather have the game be in a healthy economy than suddenly have hyperinflation and have me be completely priced out of it, even as free to play. I think it's important to know that, of course, there's going to be some catering done to the people who are spending money legitimately on this game, and that is important for the company to be able to stay alive, basically. So, overall, as I touched on, my personal solution: ban the RMT only people, try to cater to the players that are left, and do a rollback. A rollback seems like the best way to get rid of this illegitimate money, as long as you have ways to prevent more illegitimate money from entering the market. And then on top of that, there needs to be more policing done in order to stop these events from happening again. I think the best thing for NCSoft to do moving forward is to be hyper communicative about how they're trying to fix this situation and be extra empathetic to the players who are still left in their game after all this is blown over. With the massive spenders on RMT gone, there's going to be a lot less people running high-end dungeons and a lot less of that kind of items and things going into the market. There's also going to be less free-to-play players because people are just fed up with their shit at this point. So for the players who are left, there needs to be events, there needs to be coupons, there needs to be something to incentivize them to still keep playing this game, keep spending. For the players who bought Ncoin to then make them into Divine Gems legitimately, maybe there needs to be some kind of way for them to get a Ncoin sale or something in the future, so that way maybe even if they were tempted into the RMT by this weekend, they've already lost that investment through a rollback, and now they can kind of recoup some of those losses or make up for it with real legitimate purchases at a discount courtesy of NCSoft. On top of that, there needs to be some kind of system put in place or some kind of event thrown in to help the free-to-play players and help the lower population that is left. Something in the terms of giving extra gold or giving extra selection chests or giving reduced costs on ascension items and item ascension mats, whatever. Something to help the current players keep up to the content that is in the game that is especially will be harder to run now that a lot of whales who were just pure RMTers are gone from the game, assuming you properly ban all of them. Like I said, this is my own proposed solution. I don't expect to have all the perfect answers, and I'm sure many people will find issue with one or two things that I've said, if not everything I've said. So please feel free to let me know what you think is best in the comments below. I don't expect that there's going to be any perfect way to deal with this, but maybe someone out there is a genius who can figure it out for NCSoft, and maybe they can find some inspiration in your words. Either way you slice it, this is not a very good situation to be in, and this very well may be the death of Blade and Soul Soul Neo before we even got a chance to get all the good stuff out. My poor Warlock. But we'll see how things play out. It's really on the onus of NCSoft to respond to this immediately, highly visibly, communicatively and transparently, and to make sure that you are doing right by the players who support your game legitimately. I do hope that the actions you take, NCSoft, are something that most players can agree with, and to the players out there, I hope that it can be understood that unfortunately this situation was not something that they ever wanted to have happen. If you quit over it, it is what it is. But if you want to keep trying to play the game or support the game because you like it or you feel like it can go somewhere nice, then hopefully we can still see you around running dungeons and just enjoying the game. I know I'll still be playing for a little bit. I at least want to see Warlock come out. Dear God, I've been waiting too long and I still don't know when exactly it's coming. Soon, TM. But for me in this video right now, that's about all I got. So I hope you have a great rest of your week and I'll see you next time. Peace.